What the hey, MegaPodTastic's Krazy Joe, and we are still talking Ready Player One. This is the video where I'm going to talk some spoilers. I did not talk spoilers on the last one. So, for those of you just joining us, I'm not going to delve into everything I said in the last video. Go click that video. Bottom line, like the book a lot. Like the movie a lot. They are different. I think that's okay. So now I'm going to talk about the differences between the book and the movie that personally I didn't care for. And there's really only two. The first is, in the book, there is a sequence where Parzival has to go into a movie, an 80s movie. He has to kind of go into this old 80s movie and reenact it. In the book, that movie is War Games with Ali Sheedy and Matthew Broderick. Obviously, they were not going to use War Games in the movie because it's a Warner Brothers movie, and War Games is not a Warner Brothers property. It's owned by MGM. So I knew going in that either there was going to be no scene like that where he actually has to go into an old movie, or it was probably going to be a Warner Brothers movie. I was right. The movie is the Warner Brothers owned The Shining. He enters into The Shining. And this is one of my little things that I did not care for as much about the movie. I felt like I've seen The Shining. I'm a film buff. I've seen The Shining. I like The Shining. But it's a movie that's so pop culture heavy that I felt that the movie he entered should have been something a little more universally known, universally loved. The Shining is a horror movie. I like horror movies, but horror is a very divisive genre. A lot of people do not care for the horror genre. My wife, for example, she read the book. She liked the book. She goes see the movie with me because she liked the book. And suddenly, she hates horror movies. She's never seen The Shining. And suddenly, she finds herself watching this extended horror movie scene that she did not care for and did not understand fully because she did not see the movie. And she's not the only person I've heard say that. I've run into some other people who've never seen The Shining, and they didn't get that scene. Now, the bottom line is, The Shining is simply not that universal. It's universal with film nerds, it's universal with horror fanatics, but the pop culture as a whole, that's not one of those movies. There's two movies. If you're looking for a movie that's iconic 80s movie that is owned by Warner Brothers, there's two movies they could have used that I think would have done a much better job, because they would have been more universal. The Goonies and Gremlins. When I rack my brain trying to think of the most iconic 80s movies that are owned by Warner Brothers, those are the top two that come to mind. Maybe Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Maybe Beetlejuice? Police Academy? I don't know. Those are all kind of in the maybe territory. But Goonies and Gremlins are universally loved and well-known movies that just about everyone has seen. Gremlins in particular would have worked in that scene, because in the movie, there's a scene where the Sixers are getting attacked by these like zombie women. Now there's not even any zombies in The Shining, so that doesn't completely make sense. However, if you turned it into Gremlins, it would have made more sense. It would have been more well understood by the masses. It would have made more sense, and it wouldn't have changed the scene too much. I think it should have been Gremlins. Now, there's a very simple reason why Goonies or Gremlins were not used. Steven Spielberg made it very clear that he did not want to use any of his own properties, or as few of his own properties as possible in the movie. Yes, Steven Spielberg did produce the Goonies and the Gremlins, but I don't even think of those as Spielberg properties myself. I think of them as Joe Dante directed Gremlins. I think of that as a Joe Dante property myself. And Goonies I think of as a Dick Donner property. Dick Donner directed that. Yeah, Spielberg was executive producer, but I don't think of those as Spielberg films. But apparently Spielberg does. I don't know. I think it should have been Goonies or Gremlins. I don't think the Shining sequence really worked. I think it's one of the weaker scenes in the movie. The other thing I didn't like is in the book, he plays a Pac-Man game, gets a perfect score on Pac-Man, and as a result, he wins a quarter. And this quarter at the end of the movie comes to play because he gets an extra life for having won that quarter. Well, the extra life quarter is in the movie, but it's given to him by a robotic librarian who at the very end of the movie we find out was actually Halliday's partner, Og, in disguise. I didn't like that as much. I really wish they'd kept the Pac-Man game in there. I liked that better. Those are my two big gripes. A lot of changes in this movie, but those are the two that I walked out saying those were changes for the worse. I didn't care for those changes. What do you think? I'd like to hear. I really like the movie, really like the book. Those are my only two minor grumbles. Overall, I think it's a solid adaptation. As I said in the first video, I think it's very faithful to the core of the story and the spirit of the story. Only the details have changed, and I don't really have a problem with that. It makes them both unique, and they can both be enjoyed for their own reasons. So, I give them both a high five. I want to hear your thoughts. If you have an opinion, type it down in those comments. I'd like to read it. Keep on wearing those pajamas.